The VTweeters are out again. They're seething, and it's poor old Kirsche once again in the crosshairs. Hey, I'm Dick, I'm a stick, and this is your Daily Dick. So, for anyone not familiar with the VTuber Kirsche, let's start with a little bit of backstory here. She's a variety streamer that mostly chats about some of the most outrageous articles that she can find on the internet, often to her chat's horror, and sometimes she even plays video games. But earlier on this year, someone took an out-of-context clip of her commenting on a Kirsche video where he was openly talking about the immigration crisis and how it's by design. While no one claims that Starmer is a Nazi, this clip was used by Vice and a quote-unquote, using the term very loosely here, journalist, to paint Kirsche as the one pushing the so-called great white replacement theory, or whatever they called it. Now, the article itself was obviously nothing more than this thinly veiled character assassination. I mean, they even went on to use this link to a Reddit thread, if you can believe that, of some random nobody Redditor's opinion that was also trying to paint Kirsche as some far-right neo-Nazi, with a bunch of clips which every single one got debunked. And if that's not enough to let you know how worthless this particular piece was, just know that Kirsche countered with the threat of legal action, because it was literally liable for Vice, and they folded like a paper napkin. They removed it hours later. Still, this article was then used as justification at a failed cancellation attempt against Kirsche. And while the financial damage was thankfully quite limited, it did end with Kirsche having to relocate to a literal bunker to conceal her location. Now, this is just a part of the story we do know. Yesterday, Kirsche revealed on stream that she's been advised by police to keep quiet about a lot of the details, so honestly, we don't know the full story. Just that it was serious enough that she had to relocate to get away from potential harassment. Meanwhile, the journalist still has their job, even if they've been told that they can't continue doing the types of articles they were doing. But honestly, that's kind of a small mercy. I mean, guys, I ain't going to cover the Anna Valence or whatever the name is. I'm not going to cover that stuff here. But let's just say, if you're not a degenerate, it is at the very least eyebrow-raising stuff. And at the very worst, genuinely scary that these kind of things would pass through a person's brain at all. And I am even talking about the article here that I saw that they put out. I'm not even talking about the personal fiction that's publicly available. That was literally horrifying. Now, I have followed Kirsche 4 years now. I first got exposed to her during a Sons of the Forest stream where, I forget how long ago it was. She did it with Pippa. Yeah, I can't remember how long I've been following. It's been a good few years. But my first thought of Kirsche was, voice is kind of grating. I mean, listen to me, who am I to judge someone for their voice? And I did find her entertaining, so I looked up some clips of her on YouTube. I then found some streams that she did. I watched them live, and before long I was a regular viewer. Even to this day, Kirsche is one of the 2 streamers that I will watch live regularly. And that's actually why you can see it down here. She's in my little rotating Oshi frame I've got here on my desk. I'd even say that while a lot of the people in the community may not know me by the name of my personal account, and obviously I do want to keep my personal and VTuber accounts separate, chances are they're aware of some work that I've done for Kirsche in the past. What I'm saying is I'm part of the community, and I have been following Kirsche for long enough to have a decent picture of her. And the point I'm making here is that I feel like I do have more of an authority to describe Kirsche as a person, as a content creator, than someone who is just going on hearsay and out of context clips. Which, if anyone takes anything away from this video, I do kind of hope it's this one realization. And that is, with these kinds of cancellation attempts, it's always people that don't watch the content trying to tell people that do watch the content what's in the content. And that to me is pure insanity. The amount of people that tried to tell me that Kirsche was a bad person, and then when I stuck up for her, it would then get flipped on me. It's like, well, you're just a bad person then because you agree. How people expect to win using those kind of tactics is beyond me, but it is what it is. The thing is, as someone who does watch the content, if I was asked to a brief statement about Kirsche and whether or not she's a Nazi, what I would say is this. Ironically, Kirsche has more experience with neo-Nazis than these terminally online crybabies ever will, and it's not because she is one, but because she has had to deal with an actual IRL neo-Nazi in her life. Kirsche has spoken multiple times of her childhood, and at one point her mother dated a neo-Nazi. She has been very vocal on multiple times I have personally seen where she has condemned it. So while I wouldn't want to place her on the political compass, I can't do that without assumption. What I can say is I would place myself as actually central leftist, maybe probably more libertarian as I've gotten older with age. And while I don't actually agree with every single take that Kirsche has, we do seem to agree on quite a lot, so we are probably quite close on that compass. But I mean, obviously the point I'm getting at here is no, she's not a Nazi. But that's kind of a moot point really, isn't it? Because when people like myself or Kirsche use the label of neo-Nazi, we are talking about actual neo-Nazis. I mean, fancy that. People like the ex of Kirsche's mother, and failing that, if you need like a pop culture reference to go by, Edward Norton from American History X. That is the kind of person that label used to be applied to. However, these days you're labelled one for simply disagreeing with a progressive political take, especially these people that are operating under a mindset that anyone who disagrees with them politically has to be a Nazi, because in their own eyes, they're the good guys. Never mind the fact that they will gleefully label others as fascist, while also championing a government to force a Christian baker to make a cake for a gay wedding and imprison anyone for the crime of misgendering. Oh, they love that shit. Even though that is quite literally fascism in action, but they just can't seem to wrap their head around that. Now, I risk going off on a tangent here, so to bring the train of thought back onto tracks, the point is these words have been bastardized to the point where most people wouldn't even recognize them anymore. But honestly, I think that's the point. Because to the average Joe, hearing the words Nazi and fascist, that's going to get the brain making connections that aren't there. To someone who hasn't watched Kirsche, hearing that she's a Nazi might make them avoid her content. And I think that's the point. Because if they were to avoid her content, well, they're going to miss out on hearing about some pretty important topics. Topics like bridge, which Kirsche is trying to scream her lungs about. And I don't know, I don't have time to get into bridge right now. That would be a huge tangent. Maybe I'll make a video on it one day. But for now, you know, Kirsche has her own video. So if you want to learn about bridge, you can go check out her video. I highly recommend it. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is kind of the kink in the armor that destroys their entire position. When criticisms are raised about people like Kirsche, they're not talking about the topics and the points that they're making. They're attacking them as a person. They never attack the ideas. They always attack the person. They don't try to provide alternative takes or prove them wrong. They just attack the character. And even then, using this great replacement spin that they like to throw around, even just use that as an example, right? They're not offering any counter arguments to why Kirsche's points that she made in that video were wrong. They're just saying, Nazi, bad person, don't listen to her. So to me, it's like they just don't even want to give people a chance to make their point, because if they did, well, maybe you draw attention to something like, I don't know, falling birth rates and parts of London that are unrecognisable now from just 10 years ago. And again, to the average Joe, this might spark a thought that leads them to dig deeper. And as someone who has gone through this process will tell you, once you start noticing the one thing, suddenly you start noticing a lot of other things as well. And that's what the progressives are scared of. At least that's what I believe, people noticing. Because as of now, they do have complete control over, like, the left as a whole. The progressives are in control of, like, the left's narrative. And they're not scared of the far right, I don't think, because they actually amplify them so that they can play the victim. But I genuinely don't think they scare them. I think the people that scare them are people like me and Kirsche. And just to think of a couple of other examples off the top of my head, let's say Shoe on Head and probably the most well-known Joe Rogan, who himself has come out and said he's actually a leftist. Because I believe we actually represent the majority, the reasonable middle ground people that will think things like, trans people should be able to live their lives without the fear of being attacked. Seems like a pretty reasonable thought to me. What also seems like a pretty reasonable thought to me is that maybe we shouldn't be using children as guinea pigs for these experimental, quote-unquote, gender-affirming care, Maybe we could be finding ways to help children without expensive medical intervention. But it's these kinds of hot, extreme takes that are what get you labelled as a Nazi. I genuinely don't think that they want these kind of arguments making it to the public consciousness, because that would cost them a lot of the power that they currently have over the left side of the discourse. I think progressives are desperately trying to keep people like us quiet, because if you've only got these two conflicting opinions, you've got the extreme right and then you've got their position, I think to the average Joe that isn't like politically tuned into all of this stuff, and I do think the majority are genuinely like kind-hearted people. So if there are only two voices out there, and again, you've got the progressive side and the extreme right side, the average Joe is just going to side automatically with the left, because the left is what sounds right, it's what sounds nice. But then when you have people that are kind of poking holes in their arguments, because it only takes you a little bit of digging, just go a little bit beyond the surface, and you begin to start to see flaws in their arguments. And I think this is just what they are trying to avoid. And this brings me to this particular tweet, which I think kind of highlights my point very well on how they just don't want to engage in any kind of conversation. They don't care what your points are. They don't want to listen to your points. They just don't want to give you even the chance to make a point. So here we have a Twitter user by the name of Aki, and their tweet reads, "Hi, not a pleasant tweet to make, but it has to be said. Please watch out for who you follow. I've been or will be unfollowing mutes following controversial creators like those anti-woke and NAZI Vtubers, for example. I have no tolerance for intolerance." And then it goes on to show Kirsche, and this guy here is Rev Says Desu, neither of which are Nazis. I'm not a huge follower of Rev. I don't know a lot about Rev's side of things because it's not because I don't like the guy, because his content isn't really for me. It's more, he just follows kind of like streamer drama stuff, and I'm not really into the drama. But from what I've seen, not a Nazi. But of course it doesn't matter, because they simply just don't want you to hear any opposing opinion at all. And it's got to be said here, like, holy lack of self-awareness, Batman. I mean, imagine ending your tweet with this, right? I have no tolerance for intolerance. And your entire tweet is about how you're going to unfriend people. You will literally not be friends with people simply for following the creators in the first place. Not for what opinion you may or may not have. You follow this person, we can't be friends. Now, surely to a healthy, rational mind, is that not intolerance? Absolutely insane to me how these people's brains work. But it gets worse if you delve deeper into the comments. Because here we do have, like, you know, a pretty reasonable take. I don't understand this mentality. People don't always follow accounts because they like or agree with the content. I follow people sometimes because I want to see what they say and how people react to it. And the original poster here replies with, "That's your prerogative. I don't own my follow, time or friendship to anyone I don't want to share it with. We all deal with our relationships differently." Yes, and Aki, I would say you are dealing with your relationships in a very unhealthy way. This one I find hilarious. You always get this. You always get this. I did see this a lot during the attempted cancellation of Kirsche. You know, I used to watch Kirsche, but then I realised that she's just a bad person, which... This motherfucker ain't what Rev, man. They don't know what Rev's content's about or what Rev's opinions are. This is all formative. Again, I think this is just for onlookers that will pass by it and say, well, this person clearly knows what they're on about. I should avoid this particular content creator. And again, going back to the Kirsche cancellation, actually even recently we had an example of this in that Nyara vs Leaflet debate I reacted to a while back. They don't fucking watch content. You try and push them on this and test their knowledge on the content creator in any way. They know nothing. They know nothing about their talking points or opinions or even them as a person. It is all performative, and once you've dealt with it a few times, it becomes very transparent. Again, it's just another progressive tactic that they like to use. But what really gets me is this reply. Like, good, we share that brain. Yeah, you fucking do. That's called a cult mentality. And then they've got this gif of some anime girl stroking a cat as if to suggest, "You're my pet. I'm praising you for good behaviour." It's so performative. There was another one from Savi, where she's tying everything to Anna Valance and Nyara here, who some might argue were bad people, and by that logic shouldn't interact with the original poster because the original poster is following these people. And then you've got Rev himself here, and again, don't know much about the guy, but from what I've seen, he does have a wicked sense of humour, and I appreciate a good sense of humour. The Rev here says, "Just blocked both of them. Thanks for making the VTubing scene a safer place." I kind of love that sort of shit, man. Like, I've got a lot of respect for someone that has a good sense of humour, and I'm going to be honest, the progressive these days, they don't seem to have that sense of humour anymore. They can't seem to joke about anything. We've also got Grob here, who making a similar joke. I believe this is Rev's wife. But I mean, you look at the first few posts, right, and they're just ones that the original poster has replied to themselves, so it's kind of stuck them at the top of the list. And if you're just doing like a casual look, it would look like people are agreeing with them, yeah? But then you delve deeper, you go through these comments, and it is just people absolutely hammering them. Yeah, that follows Nyara. Disingenuous little weasel that person is. And, oh, we've got a clip here from Kirsche. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's listen to it from the Foxu's own mouth, shall we? Give me 2 seconds to make sure my audio is set up correctly here.
Once again, they don't call you a Nazi because they think you believe the things that a Nazi does. They call you a Nazi because they are marking you as an acceptable target to be shot and killed.
True.
And make no mistake, if you have been called a Nazi, if you were shot, they would celebrate. Because again, they're not calling me a Nazi because they actually think I'm a Nazi, because I'm not. They're calling me that because I'm an acceptable target for any of their tactics, up to and including termination.
Yeah, I mean, this is a case where me and Kirsche don't 100% agree. I understand the point he's trying to make. I think it's a bit alarmist, trying to say that they want. Then you look at things like Charlie Kirk, and this was a dude who, you know, just wanted to have conversations, and the way they celebrated his death was kind of sickening to see. Okay, back. I've managed to fix my tracking a bit better. So, okay. So, yeah, to some extent, I think it's true. At least for the ones that are being malicious, I would say that's probably their end goal. There's a lot of very nasty people that hide behind the progressive message of love and tolerance, that are actually just very vile people that just want to do horrible things to people. But I mean, to wrap this up, back to my earlier point, I think there are two main reasons why people act like this and do these kind of things. And it is always on the progressive side that you see this. You never see a right-wing account saying, if you follow Hassan, I'm going to stop being friends with you, you know. And given that I don't know Aki, I will extend them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're not trying to be malicious. But the other motivation that I would see that could explain this kind of behaviour is, in my opinion, kind of worse, because it just means that they're mentally not strong enough to deal with the slightest kind of dissidence against them. They've just been groomed so much by the progressive hive mind that they want to curate this like perfect online space and make an echo chamber that's just a giant circle jerk. It's not good. You can't have it that way. I don't know this person personally. I'm trying not to assume and put them into a particular box, even if they seem to be very quick to do that to other people. I just see this kind of thing again. To me, it's starting to look like they want only two opinions out there, right? They only want the opinion of the far right out there and their progressive opinion, because that is the one that to the rational person at first will sound most palatable. And people don't fall into the right-wing box or the left-wing box. There are a heck of a lot of people out there that are kind of just doing their own thing, man. But we all get shoved into the far-right box anyway, because that way it either scares people into silence because they don't want to be lumbered with, you know, the quote-unquote bad guys. And if the scare tactics doesn't work and that doesn't silence you, well, you'll just be outed from your group entirely. If you're seeing this video and you're in like a kind of a leftist bubble, that you see things in perhaps a Discord chat that you don't 100% agree with, try pushing it back on it and even a little bit, and just see which of the people instantly turn nasty on. Because this has happened to me. I am speaking from personal experience. People I know in real life that have actually turned nasty towards me, almost like a light switch, just because I said something they didn't agree with. And they didn't try to attack my ideas, they didn't try to prove me wrong. They just tried to paint me as a bad person and not someone worth listening to. It's kind of pathetic, if you ask me. And this isn't going to be a kind of environment that you're going to be able to grow in as a person. If no one is like challenging your ideas, you're just going to, again, you're just not going to grow. The only place it's going to lead to is this hive mind mentality, and once you've reached that point, I'm sorry, but you're no longer in a political movement. You're in a fucking cult. But I think that's a good place to wrap it for today. So that's all I've got. Yeah. Until next time, guys, don't be a dick.